She escaped the grief of losing her firefighter husband, but the house she moved into had its own way of mourning. What her daughters started hearing at night will haunt you. And when the cameras caught what stepped out of the woods, everything changed. This isn't just a ghost story. It's what happens when the past follows you home. Watch till the end. On a bitterly cold January afternoon in 2005, the sirens wailed across the Bronx, not for celebration, but in mourning. Curtis Myron, a firefighter of iron resolve and unshakable heart, died that day after leaping from the 4th floor of a burning apartment. He and 5 of his brothers in service had found themselves trapped in a high-rise inferno with no way out. It was a decision that no firefighter ever wants to make, but they jumped. Curtis and 2 others didn't survive. New York would come to know that day as Black Sunday, a name stitched into the fabric of grief that settled over the city and especially over Curtis's wife, Jeanette Myron, and their 2 daughters, Angela and Daynine. Curtis had built their home himself, beam by beam, hammering hope and sweat into every corner. But after his death, those walls became a suffocating reminder of what they lost. Jeanette could no longer breathe inside that house, and the media wouldn't let them grieve in peace. Reporters camped outside like vultures circling the freshly wounded. Jeanette, worn and hollowed by pain, gathered her girls one evening and said they needed a new beginning, a place with no ghosts of the past. The girls agreed, not knowing they were trading memories of sorrow for something far darker. She found a house on the quiet edge of Long Island. It was oddly cheap for the land it sat on, 1 full acre bordered by forest. The structure was modest, battered by time, its windows drooping like tired eyes, and its doors too easily opened by the wind. But it was affordable, and it was theirs. Firefighter friends of Curtis swarmed the place like guardian angels, swinging hammers and dragging away debris. They stripped the house down to its skeleton, unknowingly peeling away the seal on something that had long been buried. Jeanette, ever cautious, installed 7 surveillance cameras around the property. The feed streamed to her laptop, a measure of security she thought would bring her peace. Late one night, while sipping tea in the living room and flipping between camera angles, her eyes locked on the feed showing the front yard. Beyond the swing set and the gravel driveway, something stirred in the trees. A cloaked figure stepped out from the forest. No sound, no rush, just movement. It drifted halfway down the driveway, stopped, and tilted its head toward the house. Jeanette froze. The tea turned cold in her hand. She could see no face, no features, just the cloak, the stillness, the stare. Then it turned and vanished back into the woods. Her breath returned in a shudder. She tried to convince herself it was a camera glitch, a trick of shadow, a fox, anything but what it felt like. Upstairs, her daughters were having their own first encounters. Angela was reading, her back pressed against the wall, when she felt it, soft, rhythmic tapping, subtle as a whisper, against her spine. She shifted, sat upright, and listened. Then bang. 3 heavy thuds pounded the wall, as if someone were inside it, trying to come through. She leapt out of bed, heart hammering, and opened her door. Downstairs, Jeanette was still at her laptop. No one else moved. No one else made a sound. She returned to her room and leaned her ear against the wall. The moment her skin touched the surface, something struck it hard from the other side. She screamed and threw herself under the covers, praying that blankets could hold off fear. Meanwhile, Daynine was brushing her hair when tapping came from her door. A polite knock, just 3 gentle taps. She opened it expecting her mother, but the hallway was empty. She checked downstairs. Her mother was where she'd always been. Angela's door was shut. She closed her door and once again 3 taps. When she opened it this time, the air felt colder. Still, she said nothing, buried herself under her comforter, and listened to the silence screaming in her ears. The next morning, the girls exchanged their stories. They talked fast, breathless, finishing each other's sentences. Fear bounced between them like static. Jeanette entered the kitchen and asked what they were so worked up about. When they explained the tapping and banging, she smiled the way adults do when kids tell ghost stories. "It's an old house," she said. "Houses make sounds. Creaking floorboards, pipes settling. It's all new to you. Don't let your imaginations run wild. Days later, firefighters helping with the renovation turned their attention to the basement. It was a dungeon of clutter, rusted tools, cracked furniture, boxes of yellowed paper. Tom Alvarez, Curtis's closest friend, began clearing debris and noticed something carved into the concrete floor. It was faint, hidden under grime, but unmistakable. A pentagram. 5 points inside a circle, the edges worn but deliberate. Tom called Jeanette down. She stared at it, and her mouth turned to stone. "Paint over it," she said. "Don't let the kids see it." But the kids had already seen more than she knew. Angela and Day9 had been exploring the woods and had stumbled across more pentagrams. Etched into tree bark, drawn in dirt, scratched into stones. They didn't tell Jeanette. They didn't want to add weight to the sadness already hanging over her. They simply decided to ignore them, as if pretending the symbols weren't there would strip them of their power. One afternoon, Jeanette ran to the store, leaving Angela alone for the first time. She tasked her with cleaning the refrigerator. Angela dutifully started, but halfway through, the air shifted. She felt watched. She looked over her shoulder. No one. She turned back, ready to close the fridge and leave the task for another day, when a deafening crash erupted behind her. Every cabinet in the kitchen exploded open. Pots, pans, forks, everything clattered to the ground. Angela screamed and bolted upstairs. Jeanette returned minutes later, found her daughter shaking in a corner, and the kitchen in shambles. She pulled up the camera footage. No one had entered the house. No one had been near it. Angela's eyes were pools of terror, and for the first time, Jeanette believed her. Angela changed after that. She grew quiet, withdrawn. Her eyes darted constantly, and she jumped at the slightest sound. Jeanette didn't know how to help. They never spoke of the kitchen again. During demolition of the basement walls, one of the workers discovered a book wrapped in lace tucked between wooden beams. A journal. Its pages were stained with time and filled with the handwriting of a girl named Christina. The first few pages were benign mentions of gardening and family dinners, but then came the diagrams. Rituals, sacrifices, human and animal, all performed in the basement. One sketch even indicated a sealed cement chamber beneath the stairs, the same chamber the family had often wondered about. Jeanette read every page, then tucked the book away. The girls couldn't know. They had already seen too much. Angela was in her room when she heard her name, a whisper soft but firm. She took out her headphones, opened the door, and asked if Jeanette had called. Her mother shook her head. Down the hall, the shower was running. Day9 was inside. Angela shrugged it off and returned to her bed. As she reached for her headphones, a voice hissed from the wall, "Get Day9." Her blood ran cold. Before she could move, Day9 screamed. Angela raced down the hall, just as Jeanette came bounding up the stairs. They burst into the bathroom and found Day9 curled on the tile, screaming that something had been in the shower with her. She described a hand, large, male, resting on the frosted glass. But when she turned, there was no one. Jeanette wrapped her in a towel, gathered both daughters, and they huddled in her bed, fear pulsing like a heartbeat in the room. Jeanette wanted to leave, but they had sunk too much into the house. Money, time, sweat. And how would she explain it to the firemen who had poured their love into fixing the place? That she was running from shadows? From whispers and dreams? She stayed, and fear became their new furniture. One evening, Angela wandered outside to the swing set, craving the breeze, the moon, anything but the stifling air inside. Jeanette watched her from the kitchen window, then moved to the couch, opened her laptop and pulled up the live feed. Her blood stopped. Standing behind Angela, almost touching her, was the cloaked figure. Jeanette screamed, sprinted outside, but even before she reached the yard, she heard Angela scream. She found her daughter sprawled in the grass, her ankle twisted at an unnatural angle. "Someone pushed me," Angela gasped. She was rushed to the hospital. A dislocation, a break. The cameras told the same story. The figure appeared from the woods, stood behind her, reached out, and vanished. The police could do nothing. They urged caution. Don't go into the forest. Call us if it happens again. That was all. Now Jeanette never left their sides. They slept in the same room, ate together, moved like a single organism. But she had to get medicine one day and left Angela alone for just an hour. Angela stayed in her room, headphones on, eyes scanning every shadow. Then came the noise. The closet rattled. Slowly, methodically, as if someone were tapping from the inside. She crawled under her bed, clutching herself into a ball. The closet opened. Bare feet stepped onto the floor. Not human, not right. A shape, black and formless, yet solid. It moved like it had weight and purpose. It sniffed the air, searched the room, then left. She held her breath. Silence. Then came the thunder of footsteps on the stairs. It returned, ran into her room, stood above her bed. Saturday. She could hear the springs groan. Then its face appeared, upside down, staring at her from the edge of the bed. Its skin hung in shreds, its eyes sunken, its presence foul beyond words. She screamed, and it vanished. But it wasn't gone. She could hear it moving, smell it, feel it. She lay under the bed for 45 minutes, waiting for death or daylight. When Jeanette returned, Angela's screams pierced the walls. Jeanette tore through the house and found her daughter trembling, sobbing, begging to leave. That night, they went to Jeanette's parents. She made a call. Liz Garrison, a paranormal investigator with a reputation for cleansing the wicked. Liz came, walked every inch of the house, and performed a ritual. It was silent, strange, and smelled of sage and sorrow. When it was over, something changed. The air lightened. The silence returned to being just silence. They stayed. They still live there. Jeanette says the darkness is gone. Angela no longer hides under beds. But every now and then, when the wind howls just right, she checks the cameras. And she watches the tree line, holding her breath, waiting, just in case the demon remembers where she lives. If your cameras showed something staring at your child from the woods, would you stay or would you run? Was this family haunted by grief or by something far more real? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the ritual really worked? Or is something just waiting for the right moment to return? And don't forget to subscribe, because the scariest stories are the ones that almost happened to you.